tired. One more package. I tell you, I've had it. I am so tired of all this work.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh,
Merry Christmas.
Better change my
Merry
attitude.
Christmas. Ho, ho,
Let's put
ho.
that down here. Hi, Santa.
Hi,
Welcome.
Senior Elf.
Oh, boy. I tell you, haven't we had a lot of fun and done some really good work?
Yes, we've done some good work this year.
I'm glad. Well, I would like to talk to you, the audience, and welcome you to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers of Washington and its monthly author showcase. I'm your host, Peter Stockwell, first elf on the second Christmas show of Claw on the Bremerton Access Television. And I think Santa Claus is pretty good, you know. St. Nick, Father Christmas, you're the person who has all the goodies and the presents, and you go down the chimney, and I don't know how you stay clean. You eat all those cookies, and, well, that looks like you do.
Well, yeah, you're getting all wordy again, I see. By the way, this year is going to be kind of hard because Rudolph and the rest of the reindeer, they're all sick with the flu. So you're going to have to help me come up with some other type of propulsion system for my sleigh.
You mean the reindeer can't fly because they flew?
Exactly. The reindeer can't fly because they flew.
And they flew, which caused them to fly.
Exactly.
And now the flu is flown.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, so we have Peter Stockwell here, and I'm his partner in crime, Mark Miller. And like I said before, we originally would usually have Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer here, but Rudolph and company are sick.
You know, last I talked with Rudolph, he said you had to cut down on the cookies and this other stuff. You know, the reindeer are getting a little tired of trying to pull that sleigh.
Yeah, I know, but at least this year there's no big windstorm like there was last year. And besides, it's an addiction, okay? Christmas cookies and hot chocolate have drugs in them, and the candy cane's even worse.
Well, I'd like to say that this is Claude's second Christmas at the BCAT studios. And Mark and I have been involved in this production now for over 3 years. And we thought it would be fun to have another one of these particular shows on this particular day of Christmas with all its cultural, religious, and social connections. And we hope to highlight some of our more uplifting excerpts from the works of our authors and artists.
We have readings and some of the works provided by some of our past victims of our interviews here.
And that is okay with me. The readings will be helping to create that Christmas spirit joy and companionship with friends and family.
Yes, so no matter what your spiritual beliefs are, Christmas has become a time of brother and sisterhood, of spending time with family and loved ones.
Hey, by the way, are the reindeer getting any double overtime, anything like that? Because, I mean, we elves have been working like our butts off to get all this done. And we could use a little extra time, a little extra, you know, stuff.
You don't do this out of the goodness of your heart?
Well, of course I do it out of the goodness of my heart, but my heart likes to eat. It likes to have shelter.
Hey,
it likes to have...
hey, you're starting to look like me, so I don't think you have any problem with eating.
Ho, ho, ho. Well, our first author today is going to be Elena Gonzalez Blanton. She's both a Claw member as well as an author affiliated with the Blue Forge Press Productions. And let's listen to her story.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Elena, and I'm going to be reading from this collection of Christmas classics, a story by Louisa May Alcott called Tilly's Christmas. There are no pictures in it, otherwise I would be showing it to you. I'm so glad tomorrow is Christmas because I'm going to have lots of presents. So am I glad, though I don't expect any presents but a pair of mittens? And so am I, but I shan't have any presents at all. As the 3 little girls trudged home from school, they said these things, and as Tilly spoke, both the others looked at her with pity and some surprise, for she spoke cheerfully, and they wondered how she could be happy when she was so poor she could have no presents. "Don't you wish you could find a purse full of money right here in the path?" said Kate, the child who was going to have lots of presents. "Oh, don't I? If I could keep it honestly," and Tilly's eyes shone at the very thought. "What would you buy?" asked Bessie, rubbing her cold hands and longing for her mittens. I'd buy a pair of large, warm blankets, a load full of wool, a shawl for Mother, and a pair of shoes for me, and if there was enough left, I'd give Bessie a new hat. And then she needn't wear Ben's old felt one, answered Tilly. The girls laughed at that, but Bessie pulled the funny hat over her ears, and she was much obliged, but she'd rather have candy. Let's look, and maybe we can find a purse. People are always going about with money at Christmas time, and someone may lose it here, said Kate. So as they went along the snowy road, they looked about half them, half in earnest, half in fun. Suddenly, Tilly sprang forward, exclaiming, "I see it! I've found it!" The others followed, but all stopped disappointed. For it wasn't a purse, it was only a little bird. It lay upon the snow with its wings spread and feebly fluttering, as if too weak to fly. Its little feet were benumbed with cold. Its once bright eyes were dull with pain, and instead of a blithe song, it could only utter a faint chirp now and then, as if crying for help. "Nothing but a stupid old robin. How provoking," cried Kate, sitting down to rest. "I shan't touch it. I found one once and took care of it, and the ungrateful thing flew away the minute it was well," said Bessie, creeping under Kate's shawl and putting her hands under her chin to warm them. "Poor little birdie! How pitiful he looks, and how glad he must be to see someone coming to help him. I'll take him home, and I'll take him up gently, and I'll carry him to my mother. Don't be frightened, dear. I'm your friend." Tilly knelt down in the snow, stretching her hand out to the bird with the tenderest pity in her face. Kate and Bessie laughed. "Don't stop for that thing. It's getting late and cold. Let's go on and look for the purse," they said, moving away. "You wouldn't leave it to die," cried Tilly. "I'd rather have the bird than the money, so I shan't look any more. The purse wouldn't be mine, and I should only be tempted to keep it, but this poor little thing will thank me and love me, and I'm so glad I came in time." Gently lifting the bird, Tilly felt its tiny cold claws cling to her hand and saw its dim eyes brighten as it nestled down with a grateful chirp. "Now I've got a Christmas present after all," she said, smiling as they walked on. "I always wanted a bird, and this one will be such a pretty pet for me. He'll fly away the first chance he gets and die anyhow, so you'd better not waste your time over him," said Bessie. "He can't pay you for taking care of him, and my mother says it isn't worth while to keep folks that can't help us," added Kate. "My mother says, 'Do as you'd be done by,' and I'm sure I'd like anyone to help me if I was dying of cold and hunger. 'Love your neighbor as yourself,' is another one of her sayings. The bird is my little neighbor, and I'll love him and care for him as I often wish our rich neighbor would love and care for us," answered Tilly, breathing her warm breath over the benumbed bird, who looked up at her with confiding eyes. "Quick to feel and know a friend." "What a funny girl you are," said Kate, caring for that silly bird and talking about loving your neighbor in that sober way. "Mr. King don't care a bit for you, and he never will, though he knows how poor you are, so I don't think your plan amounts to much." "I believe it, though, and I shall do my part anyway. Good night. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and lots of pretty things," answered Tilly as they parted. Her eyes were full, and she felt so poor as she went out alone toward the little house where she lived. It would have been so pleasant to know that she was going to have some of the pretty things that all the children love to find in their full stockings on Christmas morning, and pleasanter still to have been able to give her mother something nice. So many comforts were needed, and there was no hope of getting them, for they could barely get food and fire. "Never mind, Bertie. We'll make the best of what we have and be merry in spite of everything. You shall have a happy Christmas anyway, and I know God won't forget us even if everyone else does." She stopped a minute to wipe her eyes and lean her cheek against the bird's soft breast, finding great comfort in the little creature, though it could only love her, nothing more. "See, Mother, what a nice present I found," she cried, going in with a cheery face that was like sunshine in the dark room. "I'm glad of that, dearie, for I haven't been able to get my little girl anything but a rosy apple. Poor bird. Give it some of your warm bread and milk." "Why, Mother, what a big bowlful. I'm afraid you gave me all the milk," said Tilly, smiling over the nice steaming supper that stood ready before her. "I've had plenty, dear. Sit down and dry your wet feet and put the bird in my basket on this warm flannel." Tilly peeped in the closet and saw nothing there but dry bread. Mother's given me all the milk and is going without her tea because she knows I'm hungry. Now I'll surprise her and she'll have a good supper too. She is going to split wood and I'll fix it while she's gone." So Tilly put down the old teapot, carefully poured out part of her milk, and from her pocket produced a great plummy bun that one of the school children had given her and she had saved for her mother. A slice of the dry bread was nicely toasted, and the bit of butter set by her to put on it. When her mother came in, there was the table drawn up in a warm place, a hot cup of tea ready, and Tilly and Bertie waiting for her. Such a poor little supper, and yet such a happy one. For love, charity, and contentment were guests there, and that Christmas was a blither one than that up at the great house where lights shone, fires blazed, a great tree glittered, and music sounded as the children danced and played. "We must go to bed early, for we've only wood enough to last over to tomorrow. I shall be paid for my work the day after, and then we can get some," said Tilly's mother as they sat by the fire. "If my bird were only a fairy bird, who could give us 3 wishes, how nice it would be. Poor dear, he can't give me anything, but it's no matter," answered Tilly, looking at the robin who lay in the basket with his head under his wing, a mere little feathery bunch. "He can give you one thing, Tilly, the pleasure of doing good. That is one of the sweetest things in life, and the poor can enjoy it as well as the rich." As her mother spoke, with her tired hands softly stroking her little daughter's hair, Tilly suddenly started and pointed to the window, saying in a frightened whisper, "I saw a face, a man's face looking in. It's gone now, but truly I saw it. Some traveler attracted by the light, perhaps. I'll go and see." And Tilly's mother went to the door. No one was there. The wind blew cold, the stars shone, the snow lay white on the field and wood, and the Christmas moon was glistening in the sky. "What sort of face was it?" asked Tilly's mother, coming back. "A pleasant sort of face, I think, but I was so startled I don't know what it was like. I wish we had a curtain there," said Tilly. "I like to have our light shone out in the evening, for the road is dark and lonely just here, and the twinkle of our lamp is pleasant to people's eyes as they go by. We can do so little for our neighbors. I'm glad to share the way for them. Now put these poor old shoes to dry and go to bed, dearie. I'll come soon." Tilly went, taking her bird with her to sleep in his basket nearby, lest he should be lonely in the night. Soon the little house was dark and still, and no one saw the Christmas spirits at their work that night. When Tilly opened the door the next morning, she gave a loud cry, clapped her hands, and then stood still, quite speechless with wonder and delight. There before the door lay a great pile of wood, all ready to burn, a big bundle and a basket with a lovely nosegay of winter roses, holly, and evergreen tied to the handle. "Oh, Mother, did the fairies do it?" cried Tilly, pale with her happiness as she seized the blanket while her mother took the bundle. "Yes, dear, the best and dearest fairy in the world, called Charity. She walks abroad at Christmas time, does beautiful deeds like this, and does not say to be thanked," answered her mother with full eyes as she did the parcel. There they were, the warm, thick blankets, the comfortable shawls, the new shoes, and best of all, a pretty winter hat for Bessie. The basket was full of good things to eat, and on the flowers lay a paper saying, "For the little girl who loves her neighbor as herself." "Mother, I really think my bird is a fairy, and all these splendid things came from him," said Tilly, still laughing and crying with joy. It really did seem so, for as she spoke, the robin flew to the table, hopped to the nosegay, and perched among the roses, began to chirp with all his little might. The sun streamed in on flowers, bird, and happy child, and no one saw a shadow glide away from the window. No one ever knew that Mr. King had seen and heard the little girls the night before, or dreamed that the rich neighbor had learned a lesson from the poor neighbor. And Tilly's bird was a fairy bird, for by her love and tenderness to the helpless thing, she brought good gifts to herself, happiness to the unknown giver of them, and a faithful little friend who did not fly away but stayed with her till the snow was gone, making summer for her in the wintertime. The end.
Thank you, Elena. That was very nice. Next, we have Susan Bacon, a local author, who I believe had a story with German-Austrian flavor.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Bacon. I'm a German-American author, and today I'm reading from my book Home from Home, German-American Essays, and I'll tell you about what my Christmases in Germany used to be like. Christmas. Marley was dead to begin with. This line from Charles Dickens' novella A Christmas Carol used to kick off Christmas for me for many teenage and early tween years. I had wrought a tradition of my own to go to a theater in downtown Stuttgart, Germany, to listen to British actor Brian D. Barnes reenact the glorious tale of an avaricious recluse who gets converted to the real Christmas spirit. Every once in a while, my brother and a friend of mine tagged along to these unique, unforgettable productions. By that time, Christmas to me wasn't really about receiving gifts anymore. Ever since I had discovered it was my parents who did the probably carefully budgeted Christmas shopping for us, I also realized that most of my wishes, except books and music, were flashes in the pan and basically a waste. Christmas had become something way more spiritual to me. Of course, I don't deny that our family traditions of wreath making and advent calendars were quite hands-on and less spiritual. But they added so much to the Christmas ambiance in my little world, or that of Christmas baking. And it seemed like my mother was cranking out endless streams of Christstollen, coconut macaroons, tube cookies, cut-out cookies, nut crescents, and whatnot. Our home took up the fragrance of cinnamon and vanilla, a sweet cookie smell that mixed pleasantly with the harsher notes of pine twigs in a vase in the living room. Advent Sundays were celebrated with a church service in the morning and caroling in the afternoon. Our family, always very close-knit, became even more of a microcosm during Advent. Christmas time in German cities or towns is also unthinkable without Christmas markets and Christmas decorations. In my childhood, only few cities spent money on light chain decorations for their downtown pedestrian zones. Many were still filling in bomb holes from World War II or replacing temporary shacks from the 50s. The best decorations were always in the windows of toy stores, candy stores, and cafes, as well as the department store windows. The latter displayed whole stories or scenes from fairy tales all along their fronts. When I left Germany in 2010, it had almost become something of a competition between cities about who had the most glamorous Christmas tradition, the biggest Christmas market with the most creative stands, or who could showcase the best choir, nativity exhibition, or extra feature. My hometown Stuttgart's Christmas market had grown to triple its size ever since I was a child. It has even an ice rink on its central square, the Schlossplatz. The World Christmas Circus shows up on a fairground every year with the best of. There are fancy exhibits inside the old castle, whereas in the castle's inner court, choirs from all over the world vie for attention. Apart from that, each and every suburb has its own little Christmas market. Stuttgart's neighboring cities, Ludwigsburg and Esslingen, lure with Baroque ambiance, respectively a medieval fair as an addition. Christmas Eve, the main part of Christmas in Germany, always used to be a very quiet celebration for our family. Everything was scheduled down to listening to specific radio shows in the morning that we gathered around for in the kitchen, where my mother was cooking from scratch a lunch of the most delicious chicken soup and rice I will ever remember. After a nap in the afternoon, we almost always walked to church, over a mile each way, in a neo-Gothic building with balconies and a huge organ. Our eyes would search the crowd for people we knew, and there were crowds back then. Extra chairs had to be carried in, and people huddled real closely together in order to make room for more churchgoers, some of them still left standing. No better tearjerker than the ending of a Protestant Christmas service when the lights went down, the Christmas tree the only source of light, and the entire congregation singing by heart O du Fröhliche, O Sanctissima, accompanied by the fortissimo of the organ. After church, everybody gathered around town hall to listen to and sing along with the local brass band playing hymns. Walking home through the cold dark made the simple dinner of Weisswurst, mashers, and sauerkraut a festive warmer-upper. Then, finally, we ended up singing underneath a lit Christmas tree, a real one, with real candles, always. Living in the United States now, my Christmases have changed, of course. My husband and I are mixing family traditions. Now I am the one baking cookies, and I provide the Advent decoration. The Christmas tree goes up way before Christmas, unlike I've been used to from my former life, where it was decorated behind closed doors on December 23rd to be revealed only late on Christmas Eve. We do rides around the neighborhood to look for the most beautiful Christmas lights. And it's quite interesting how close, stylish, and gaudy can border on each other. We participate in Christmassy activities as they come. Christmas at the Orr Home in Stillicum, and caroling at its wagon shop, plum pudding parades at annual dinners, Christmas stores, and bazaars. We attend church service on Christmas Eve. We enjoy a German dinner on Christmas Eve and an American Christmas dinner on Christmas Day before we exchange our 3 gifts each. I would have to lie if I said I didn't miss German Christmases with its Christmas markets, church bells, hymns, and organ music. But my husband and I do combine the best parts of our memories and traditions, and we enjoy what we gain from the part that's novel to each of us, quietly and in blissful harmony. So, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Wow, that was an excellent read, Susan. And next we have Sherry F. Lincoln. She has a story about Christmas love and care set in Hanukkah times.
Hi, I'm Sherry Lincoln, and I'm reading a Hanukkah story. And this year, Hanukkah begins Sunday, December 22nd, 2019. And here's a note. Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights, commemorates the fight for religious freedom by a small band of Jews in 165 BC. After their victory, the Jews went to rekindle the eternal light in their temple. There was only enough oil left to burn for 1 day. Miraculously, it burned for 8 days, enough time for the Jews to make more oil and keep the eternal light burning. And now the story is called Latkes, Latkes Good to Eat by Naomi Howland. And I was lucky enough to meet her. She signed my copy. Once, on the outskirts of a tiny village, a girl named Sadie lived with her 4 little brothers, Herschel, Hillel, Chaim, and the baby Max. Their mama lived there too, but she was away helping Aunt Rose with her new baby. The family was so poor that the 1 coin in Sadie's purse never had another coin to keep it company. Their house was so drafty, the wind whistled through it like a train going to Moscow, and they were always hungry. This year, the first night of Hanukkah was the coldest night yet, and the snow was deep. Sadie said, "Boys, go out and gather some firewood." "It's too cold outside," Herschel said. "You go." He pushed Hillel to the door. "It's too dark outside," Hillel complained. "You go." He pulled Chaim to the door. "But wood is so heavy," Chaim whined. "You go." He pointed to Herschel. Sadie sighed. "I will go get the wood. Watch the baby until I return." Sadie's boots sank into the new snow. She walked from tree to tree, picking up falling branches. An hour passed. It got colder and darker, and a bitter wind began to blow. At last, Sadie packed up the wood and turned to go home. Suddenly, a twig snapped. Sadie whirled around to see a bent old woman standing before her. The woman's face was as creased and lined as a bit of wrinkled cloth. The old woman sneezed. Achoo! Bless you, Tante, Sadie said. She noticed the old woman's shoulders trembling. Her coat was shabby and thin. Are you cold? Oh, I am, dear, said the old woman, shivering, and I have no more firewood. She blew on her hands to warm them. Sadie didn't hesitate. Please take this wood for your fire, she said. She piled all the wood she had gathered into the old woman's sack. Thank you, said the old woman. You are a kind child. Now I have a gift for you. She unhooked a frying pan from her belt. When you are hungry tonight, put this pan on the stove and say these words. Latkes, latkes, good to eat. Come, cook me up a Hanukkah treat. When you are not hungry anymore, say, a great miracle happened here. Thank you, Tante, said Sadie. Never forget the words I have taught you, warned the old woman. Keep them a secret. Only you may use my gift. With that, she hobbled off into the forest. Sadie ran home. Quickly, boys, let's light the menorah, she said. I have a surprise. As soon as they had said the blessing and lit the first candles, Herschel asked, What's the surprise? And where is our wood? Asked Hillel. I met an old woman in the forest, Sadie explained. I gave her the wood because she was so cold, and she gave me this frying pan. What? A frying pan? Cried Herschel. We don't even have a fire. We don't have any food, Chaim complained. Just watch, said Sadie, and she put the pan on the cold stove and whispered the old woman's words. Latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. And at that moment, a fire danced up under the frying pan. Right away, the 5 golden latkes sizzled in it, in oil. The 4 little boys crowded around the stove. How did you do that? Asked Herschel. The old woman told me not to tell, answered Sadie. As soon as she put the latkes on the plates, another 5 latkes sputtered in the pan. Can I try? Asked Hillel. No, let me, Chaim pushed his brothers aside. No, said Sadie, only I can use the frying pan. When the plates were heaped high with latkes, Sadie whispered, a great miracle happened here, and the magic frying pan stopped cooking like that. They ate and ate until their stomachs were full. The next night, after Sadie and her brothers lit their menorah, Sadie set the frying pan on the stove. In a hushed voice, she repeated the words, Latkes, latkes, good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. Immediately, a fire glowed under the pan where 5 delicious latkes were sizzling. When the plates were heaped high, Sadie said softly, a great miracle happened here, and the frying pan stopped cooking just like that. Each night of Hanukkah, the children sat down to another tasty dinner of potato pancakes. Then the afternoon of the 8th night, Sadie put on her shawl. I'm going to find the old woman and invite her to eat latkes with us tonight, she said. I will cook them when I get back. Take care of the baby and be good boys, and don't touch the frying pan. Altogether, the brothers nodded their heads and solemnly said, we promise. Only a minute after Sadie had closed the door, Herschel boasted, I heard the secret words. You did not, said Hillel, and we aren't supposed to touch the frying pan. I did too, said Herschel. We could eat just a few latkes, said Chaim. Sadie won't know. Max, the baby, said, latkes, latkes. The boys looked at Herschel. Herschel looked at the pan. It's easy to use the frying pan, he said. Just watch. He put the frying pan on the stove and said, latkes, latkes. It's good to eat. Cook me up a Hanukkah treat. The stove lit itself with a bright flame. At once the frying pan was filled with 5 latkes sputtering in oil. When the latkes were hot and golden, Herschel said, great! Here, a miracle happened. The frying pan began cooking 5 more latkes with tender centers and crispy, lacy edges. "We have enough, brother," said Hillel, but the frying pan kept on cooking. The little boys piled their plates high with latkes. "Here, great miracles happen," said Herschel. The frying pan cooked up 5 more luscious brown-flecked latkes. The 4 brothers ate fast, but the frying pan cooked faster. Soon they had filled every dish, all the mixing bowls, and the washtub with steaming hot latkes. Chaim cried, "Stop, frying pan!" But the frying pan cooked up 5 more latkes, savory and salty. "Happy green miracles here," Max yelled, but the pan kept cooking. The boys hid latkes in the cupboard and under the bed. They fed latkes to the cat. Soon latkes were spilling out the door. The smell of potatoes and onions and oil floated through the village. The shoemaker stopped cobbling to sniff. The fishmonger, holding a fresh carp, paused to breathe the fragrance. The village gossip even stopped talking long enough to inhale an aroma of Hanukkah cooking. When Sadie reached the edge of the village, she could not believe her eyes. Her house had almost disappeared under a mountain of latkes. She scrambled up a pile of warm latkes and looked in the window. Her brothers were standing at the stove, eating latkes as fast as they could. More latkes sizzled in the frying pan. "A great miracle happened here," Sadie shouted, and the frying pan stopped cooking just like that. Herschel, Hillel, Chaim, and the baby Max promised, "We will never touch the frying pan again." Sadie put them all to bed with tummy aches. "But what will we do with all these latkes?" she wondered. "I could carry them away," said the village porter. "I could sweep them up," said the broom seller. "We could eat them," said someone else. It was Mama, home from helping Aunt Rose. "We'll have a Hanukkah feast," said Sadie. "Everyone is invited." What a party the village had that night. There was singing and dancing and dreidels playing. And of course there were latkes, golden, tongue-burning, hot, tender yet crisp, lacy, luscious, brown-flecked, savory, salty, scrumptious latkes to eat. And no one in this tiny village was ever hungry on Hanukkah again. And that was latkes, good to eat. Thank you.
And now we have David Martin, who is reading from one of his books at the very end about the return of a soldier at the time of Christmas.
Hi, my name's Dave Martin, and I'm going to be reading from a Robert Curtis mystery, my book, Called into Service. The Lord of Misrule. Both Robert and Edward were anxious to return to Berwick-upon-Tweed, 350 long miles north of London. The thought of a hard, long ride through the December cold led Barclay to insist they find a ship going north and cut the time of the journey from 2 or 3 weeks to as little as 4 or 5 days. Barclay's effort paid off, and the next day they boarded a Dutch Floyd, a speedy cargo ship in the Rotherhithe, and were making their way down the River Thames before noon. The ship had brought a cargo of wine and root vegetables from Holland to London and carried finely crafted furniture and porcelain to Berwick-upon-Tweed, where it would load wool for Amsterdam. Though the weather was cold and the seas choppy, the ship was solid, dry, and warm. Both men used the time to reflect on the events of the past months. Robert was now certain it was only his chance witnessing of the meeting in Howard Fitzhugh's Cambridge apartment that put the assassin Sharp on his trail and cost the life of George Fox, an innocent man with a future of faithful service ahead of him. His Calvinist friends would insist it had all been ordained by God. Was such an acceptance any more comforting than the random death of a good and righteous man? Yes, God can use a tragedy to bring about good things, and it was indeed Robert's prayer that his friend had not died in vain, but this brought him no peace. Why did he survive? Not one but 3 attempts on his life. A mystery of faith. Robert concluded, one more mystery beyond understanding. The weary soldiers arrived in Berwick-upon-Tweed on December 24th, 1621. Barclay said as they stepped onto the pier, "I'm off home, Robbie. How long must we wait for word? I'm a-wanting to return to the regiment." "Return to soldiering, Barclay? Thought you might have had your fill. You know the men in Heidelberg will have no relief." "I cannot leave them to their fate." "And where shall I find you, Robbie, with your father or uncle?" "Truly I have questions for my uncle, and certainly news regarding Sir Geoffrey, but I go first to my father's house." As Barclay walked off, Robert called, "Come tomorrow, my friend, as it is the custom on Christmas, but after church." "Aye, Robbie, and be ready to pay the piper." Robert found his father's house dark and empty. The neighbors told him his father had moved into the manor with his brother, Viscount Curtis. Robert hired a cart to haul his chest filled with armor, uniform, and clothes, and made his way up the hill overlooking the harbor to the great granite stone house on top. A loud knock on the heavy door was answered immediately by a servant. "Master Curtis, welcome. Happy you are here for Christmas. Your uncle the Viscount is with the others in the great hall. Please go directly, I will tend to your things. A room has been prepared for you." Entering the great hall, Katerina shouted out, "Robert, oh Robert, you have returned, and for Christmas. God is so good. Look, Johann, Robert is here." Katerina rushed to Robert and embraced him with a warm hug. Soon Johann joined the embrace. "My brother, it is indeed a blessing. Your family has shown us such hospitality." Katerina gushed, "If only Wilhelm and Papa could be here now, it would be perfect." Robert asked, "Is there any news from Karl? Is Werner safe? And where is Wilhelm?" Johann answered, "Werner and Papa are safe. They send word through the watchers. I will go to join them, to lead our people to safety in Amsterdam." "They will be welcome here as well," Robert replied. "So it would appear, but it may be hard for them to cross the sea. In the United Netherlands, they are closer to home and can follow events. And your English ways can be so different." "And my brother priest, Wilhelm?" Katerina answered, "He spends all his time at the hospital, the orphanage, and the widow's home. He is determined to minister where he is needed." "He does not perform the Mass, I pray." "No, he honors the law and the customs of your people. He serves by helping, listening, and praying." Robert asked, "Does he hide in his work? Surely he will join us for Christmas worship tomorrow." Katerina pleaded, "Talk to him, Robert. He listens to you. He values your advice. He has even learned English from the Bible you gave him and practices all the time." An elderly man spoke up in the pause. "Can someone not gifted in French or German have a word?" "Father, it's good to see you. Well, and here with Uncle James. I went first to your house, but your neighbors said you live here now. And Uncle James, I must thank you for the hospitality you show my friends." Viscount Curtis nodded. "I have learned that these are family to you. They saved your life and took you in. Are they not my family as well? And my brother, who came to serve me in my illness, he has been such a blessing. I insisted he stay even as I have recovered. 2 old men who needed to be reminded of the meaning of family and brotherhood. My house has never been so filled with joy. Welcome home, Robert." "Uncle James, and you as well, Father, I bring news. Hard news that should be for your ears alone. Friends, please excuse us for a few minutes. Let me have a word, and then I will share with you my adventures." Robert walked to the Viscount's study when his uncle called out, "Not that room. No, come with me." The Viscount led him to the receiving room and said, "What hard news, Robert?" Taking a deep breath, he began, "Cousin, Sir Geoffrey will soon be arrested and tried for treason. It is true, I am afraid, he provides information to the enemy. He intends to kill Colonel Sir John Burroughs and surrender the garrison. He is a member of a Catholic cell led by a Vatican priest and a Cambridge Don. Barclay and I found the proof and delivered it to the Marquess Buckingham, who takes it to the king." Viscount Curtis stepped back in disbelief and sat in a chair. "It is true I never much cared for Sir Geoffrey, but a traitor? A noble of the house of Curtis, a traitor to our king? He will bring disgrace and dishonor on our house." Charles Curtis replied, "Is it not fortunate, brother, that it is a Curtis who brings the news to the king? Will he not see our loyalty at the pain of our own house? Excuse me, uncle, but what becomes of the titles and estates of a traitor? They are forfeit to the crown." I am certain, Uncle, that the Marquess of Buckingham will protect the Curtis of Tweedbridge. But tell me, Uncle, why did you send Sir Geoffrey's man, Sharp, a man who 3 times tried to murder me, and why send him to Edward Berkeley? A murderer? I did not know the man's character. No, I simply honored Sir Geoffrey's request to recommend a man skilled in smuggling and procuring hard-to-find goods. Goods where no man is concerned with their history. I knew Berkeley was a smuggler. I have known it for years. He is good at his trade, but he only became proficient with my protection. You protected Berkeley? Even a smuggler has a limited number of beaches he can land, and there are only so many roads. No, I made sure the patrols never interfered with him. Now Charles replied together with Robert. Why? Well, on account of his mother. She was a saintly woman, such a kind heart. Even as widow, I saw that she would have enough for herself and her son, but she could not say no to another in need. She gave away all that she had. She gave not just her money, but her food. She gave time and service and love. Never did a woman love so many so well. She gave to me. She deserved to receive. If she would not keep what I provided, I let Edward provide what he could. Don't be fooled by his bluster. Edward was a good and loving son. And who has been hurt by his smuggling? The wealthy and comfortable paid their taxes. The poor only took what they needed. Robert replied, You knew all along. After a pause, he continued, You are right about Edward Berkeley. He is a good man. I now count him as among my dearest friends. He intends to return to his regiment and likely die with them. His mother would be proud of his sense of honor, but you should not let him return. It is only on the orders of the Marquess of Buckingham that we await his permission to leave England. We may be called as witnesses in the trials. You too, Robert? Then I hope justice comes slowly and you remain safe. Uncle, why did you buy my commission in the Volunteers? Your cousin's request for Berkeley put it in my mind. I bought you time and an opportunity to find your calling. You have the heart and the calling of a priest, but a soldier learns he must act. Too much thinking, Robert. You need to learn to act. Wilhelm did not join the festive dinner that night. Robert left word to awaken him when Father Hahn returned, and that Wilhelm was to await to see Robert before retiring. It was past midnight on Christmas morning when an exhausted and worn Father Wilhelm Hahn finally returned to the manor house. Surprised to hear of Robert's return, he warmly greeted his friend. Robert, how good to see you, brother. I did not know of your return, but here you are, in one piece. No new wounds, no more limping. Good to see you, my friend. You missed a most wonderful and festive dinner, brother. Shame on you for hiding from those who love you. Robert, there is so much need, so much to do. I am sorry I could not leave sooner. You will come with us to church this morning. We will worship together, and you can hear the familiar liturgy in English, sung beautifully, and the choir. I long to worship together once more. Of course, Robert, I will worship with you. It will be a joy. And with my father and Uncle Johann and Katarina, we shall worship and return to feast. Robert paused, his face turned serious. You look tired, my friend. I think it is not long for hours of service. I think your soul is still troubled. You question why you are here and not saying Mass in Germany. Can we pray together, brother? Do you trust our Lord to answer you? I do pray, Robert, just as I did in Mainz before we left, but my doubts remain. Still you are here. You are serving our Lord and ministering to the great need you have found. I learned that Sharp tried 3 times to kill me, but God saved me. My friend George Fox, a good and righteous priest, he killed easily. I learned it was because we witnessed a meeting of men I did not know. But you see, God preserved me. I know he loved my friend, but he saved me, and I must walk the path he has chosen. Has not our Lord and Savior preserved you and set you on a new path as well? I only ask that you consider it. We will talk more later. Indeed, I look forward to sharing so much with you, my brother, and with Johann and Katie. Look how great is our God. I came home to find my father and uncle reconciled. Sleep, friend, rest, and tomorrow rejoice with me. The next morning, Katie insisted on holding Robert and Wilhelm's hands as they walked to church. The old stone church in the center of Berwick-upon-Tweed was filled as Viscount Curtis led his family and friends to his box at the front of the church, just beneath the pulpit. Robert never remembered the church as festive and joyous as that Christmas morning. Fresh greens and hollies added to the colors in the altar cloth and the best vestments of the vicar. A choir in white robes echoed the liturgy sung by the priest and congregation. Robert smiled as he saw tears of joy on so many faces. His father Charles and Uncle James, Johann, Katie, and Wilhelm, as they followed the cross, the priest and the choir out in the recessional. He saw Sergeant Edward Barclay dressed in his best uniform, singing powerfully at the aisle at the back row. Bowing as the cross passed him, he gazed over and nodded to Robert, who reached out for his hand as he passed. "A happy Christmas to you, Sergeant Barclay. I expect you at the Manor House for the feast." Barclay smiled broadly. "No sergeants in the Manor of the Viscount on Christmas. Wouldn't be right." Robert smiled at his comrade and said, "Perhaps not a sergeant, but a friend." Katie hurried the group back along the road up the hill to the grand Manor House. "Hurry, you must come quickly. I have a surprise." "Oh, what a surprise for a happy Christmas." Johann smiled. "You must listen to her. We must hurry or she shall surely burst." They marched through the door, and Katie ran forward through the great hall and stopped at the door to the Viscount Curtis study. "Everyone, please, come near, come closer. Here is my gift." She opened the door to the revealed a large, fresh-cut evergreen tree standing in the center of the room, with bright white candles sending soft white on the green tree. At home, we enjoy the tree after midnight worship. It is so much more beautiful at night, but it would not be right to celebrate until after we worship God in his sanctuary. Viscount Curtis replied, "We will still enjoy it come nightfall, but now let us feast." A servant appeared with a tray of wine and ale, and even a bottle of good Scotch whiskey was set out. Wilhelm took a dram of Scotch whiskey and said in halting English, "I have never known so much love as I know today. To my brothers and sisters." The toast echoed back, "Hear, hear, to my brothers and sisters." The toasting continued throughout the feast when a loud pounding was heard on the front door. Viscount Curtis stood up. "That will be the Lord of Misrule. Let him enter and join the feast." Robert smiled and said as he rose to welcome the Lord, "An English custom, the poor go about on Christmas Day as lords of misrule, demanding the feast of the rich be shared. On Christmas Day they cannot be turned away, but welcome to join in the joy of celebration and taste the feast of the wealthy." As Robert finished his explanation, a loud voice bellowed, "Make place at your table, Viscount Curtis. The Lord of Misrule is here." Edward Barclay, dressed in his former working clothes, the dark cloak of a smuggler, stumbled into the room. Robert yelled back, "It seems the Lord has made a few stops before this good house. Come, sit, your lordship, and join our celebration." Barclay sat down and lifted a mug of ale, leaned back to drink, and fell back, passed out, drunk. Robert eyed his friend and said, "Carry this lord up to one of the rooms. Perhaps another lord of Misrule will come and take his place." Wilhelm was laughing uncontrollably. Johann, Charles, and Viscount James joined the laughter. Katie walked over behind Wilhelm, wrapped her arms around him, and kissed the back of his neck. Crying tears of joy, she said, "Where there is love, all will be well. Wilhelm, all will be well." Thank you.
And then you could say, "Thank you, David. That was great."
Ready?
Ready.
Thank you, David. That was great.
So, our next reading is going to be with, well, I was going to ask our resident reindeer, but now that she's going to have to get over the flu,
Right.
and I think that is, so that she can fly, or he can fly, instead of having the flu, which prevents the fly, there's no flu. Even in the fire department, you can't have a flu to go down if you
Exactly.
can't fly there because of the flu.
Well, the problem being is if I don't find a way to fly. Well, the good thing is that I won't be dodging F-15s over Alaska. Because too many years, man, there I am, 40,000 feet flat on my back, no fooling, jinking and janking, and our IFF doesn't work half the time. So they think I'm a Russian bear bomber. I tell you, do I look like a bear?
Well, there's that possibility who stuffed you for hibernation, and you're grumpy like one sometimes.
Everyone's a comedian.
Well, now, I believe, Santa, you have something that you want to read.
This is a special read. This is basically a night before Christmas for our military members.
You want to do it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
"'Twas a night before Christmas. He lived all alone in a one-bedroom house made of plaster and stone. I came down the chimney with presents to give, and to see just who in this dwelling did live. As I looked all around, a strange sight to see, no tinsel, no presents, not even a tree. No stockings on the mantel, just boots filled with sand. On the wall hung pictures of a far distant lands, medals and badges, awards of every kind. A sobering thought came alive in my mind. This house was different. It was dark, it was dreary. I had found the home of a soldier. I could see that most clearly. The soldier lay sleeping, silent, alone, curled up on the floor in this one-bedroom home. His face was so gentle, the room in such disorder. Not at all how I picture the United States soldier. Was this the hero of whom I've just read? Curled up on a poncho, a floor for a bed. Then I realized the other families that I saw that night owed their lives to soldiers who were willing to fight. In the morning around the world, children would play. Grown-ups would celebrate a bright Christmas day. For they all enjoyed freedom each month of the year because of soldiers like the one lying here. I couldn't help wonder how many lay alone on a cold Christmas Eve in the lands far from home. The very thought brought a tear to my eye. I dropped to my knees and I started to cry. The soldier awakened. I heard his rough voice. "Santa, don't cry. This life is my choice. I fight for freedom. I don't ask for more. My life is my God, my country, my core." The soldier rolled over and drifted to sleep, but I couldn't control it. I continued to weep. I kept watch for hours, so silent and still, as both of us shivered from the cold night's chill. I didn't want to leave him on that cold, dark night, this guardian of honor, so willing to fight. Then the soldier rolled over in a voice soft and pure. He whispered, "Carry on, Santa. It's Christmas Day. All secure." One look at my watch, and I knew he was right. Merry Christmas, my friend. May God bless you this night.
Excellent. That was a classic, unlike the one you did last year, but this year, one that is very dear to my heart because I have a son who's in the military.
And there's a lot of us veterans out there, and I think that we sometimes forget that a lot of people are on duty on Christmas Eve and Christmas, both soldiers, first responders, doctors in emergency rooms, people at helping with the homeless, you name it.
And remember how this season should be of love and trust and goodwill to all. Especially that trust part, right?
Extremely. Especially the trust part. Plus, trust Santa in this red suit is not a burglar if I come to your house.
We at CLAW have as a mission statement to help authors and artists become known to the public, to expose their artistic endeavors to the residents of Kitsap County and to the world. Thus, we plan to continue this endeavor as long as the BCAT staff and the viewing public support us.
CLAW helps the artists, the authors, to help with marketing, distribution, and publicity. We meet the first and third Wednesdays of every month at the Spirals on Kitsap Way in Bremerton, Washington at 7 p.m. All people interested are welcome. Also, for filmmakers and actors, we have a related group, Kitsap Peninsula Filmmakers, which meets at the second Tuesday of every month at the Family Pancake House on Wheaton Way at 7 p.m. Everyone is also welcome there.
But we are not the only group out there. There are many independent writers and critique groups in Western Washington.
Vincent at 724 Studios on 724 Bay Street in Port Orchard is not only showcasing painters, but is also sponsoring local authors reading their works.
And we have just finished an independent authors showcase during National Book Month in October, as well as a winter feast of words on December 14th. And thanks to the assistance of the Silverdale Mall, Barnes & Noble, Blue Forge Press, many authors from around Western Washington have sold books and other artistic endeavors over the last couple of months. Claw and Blue Forge Group is planning on similar events in the future to support local authors, writers, musicians, and visual artists. This program will be broadcast near Christmas in the Bremerton-Kitsap Access television broadcasting area. So check the BCAT schedule for upcoming shows. We wish to thank our BCAT personnel, for without them, none of this would be possible. And of course, the viewing audience, who we hope will continue viewing in the coming year.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. And always remember the milk and cookies.
Good day. You have a delightful night and a happy new year.